This episode mentions sexual coercion, so please take care when listening. The Portland Thorns soccer team had a rough last year. Not in terms of performance. I mean, they won the National Women's League Championship. But in terms of their front office and general club management, oof. Today on CityCast Portland, we're speaking with Gabby Rosas, president of the 107st. That's the nonprofit organization that supports both the Rose City Riveters and the Timbers Army booster clubs. We're checking in with how the most dedicated Thorns fans might be feeling as we approach another season. It's Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. What was your very first Thorns game like?
My very first Thorns game was actually up at University of Portland at Merlo Field. It was one of the preseason matches, and it was just the hairs on my arms were standing on end. It was so exciting because I don't think I ever really thought that professional soccer was going to happen and catch on and would be in my hometown. So it was just awesome to be up there and experience it.
Yeah, and it was literally the first Thorns game, right? Ever played.
Yeah, so it was basically like a preseason scrimmage friendly thing where you were just like, I don't know who any of these players are. Like, oh my God, I know who Cindy Parlow-Cone is, but I don't know who any of the other coaches are. So it was definitely just trying to soak it all in and trying to get to know people. Like, oh my God, you're into this too? How cool.
That's awesome. How do you think, from that first game through maybe the last game you were at, what has changed? The vibe?
Yeah. So I think for me personally, it's kind of gone from little kid, looking at Santa Claus and being like, oh my God, that's him sort of feeling. I think that's what I had initially. And now, 10 years later, it's more, okay, I get it. It's a business. And I get it. This is professional and this is cutthroat and this is complex and very competitive. This is the real deal.
Oh, so you're saying even when you first started, you thought it was novel?
It wasn't real.
Yeah, I guess what you're saying.
We had two leagues that had collapsed in the United States. So I don't think I really allowed myself to think this is it.
Yeah.
I don't think I thought that really until year 5. Holy mackerel, this thing could stick around and could last.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about all the really nice things that made you fall in love with the sport and the league. But it's been a super controversial couple of years for the team and its fans. Why don't you catch us up on just a few things that have been going on for those who heard some buzzing but maybe don't quite know the facts?
Sure, I'll do my best to give you the Cliff Notes version. In September of 2021, a investigative report came out about the Portland Thorns and a couple of other clubs in the NWSL, but the Thorns in particular hired a coach a few years earlier named Paul Riley, who allegedly was sexually coercing players. And the players reported it. The club found out, did an investigation, and basically fired him, but told the rest of us, the general public and the fans, oh, we're not renewing his contract. We've decided to part ways. And it's that right there is the bad seed of, it's just been a lot of smoke and mirrors and a lot of
no
lying.
Transparency, right?
Yeah. And so it took, this investigative report that came out 5 years later, actually, to really tell us the truth. He got fired immediately. He was still coaching in the league. There's some controversy about, did Portland help him get his next job after he left here? And it just has kind of spiraled down from there. And more reports about, bad things that have happened inside the Portland Timbers and Thorns front office, from the way they treat female employees. There was a pretty big article last summer about some of the executives and the way that they treated or talked to female employees. Some players on the timber side have gotten in trouble for domestic violence that have been covered up. And it's just a recurring issue and problem that we've had not really living up to the ethos we want our community to be. Problems are happening, and I get it. Like a lot of businesses go through this stuff, but this is our club.
Hmm.
This isn't like what bank am I going to bank at or like what grocery store am I going to go to? This is
It's interesting how I mean, that explanation of this is our club. I mean, it's a lot of people's how they spend their free time, during the season. And it's like a family that they've created within the fan base itself. What did you and your fellow supporters think as all this was happening? Did you ever waver on your support of the Thorns? Like, what were the conversations like?
when the news hit, it wasn't just a gut punch. It really created a hole in my heart where I said, I committed to this thing,
Hmm.
and this thing is not as good as I thought it was. And the community just was appalled
Hmm.
when the news hit and irate, absolutely distraught that how could this thing that we've all invested our weekends, our evenings, our vacations, like, before this happened and before COVID, a lot of my vacations for the last 10 years have been group trips to go watch the teams with my friends.
Hmm.
And now a lot of those people that I used to travel with, they don't even want to go to games anymore because it reminds them of, something that maybe happened to them in their own life. And the way that the club fell short, maybe that's the way somebody else in their life has treated them or, they've gone through something. So it's just really been this catalyst of reflection for our community for people to say, hey, it's not worth that much time to me, or people on the other side saying it's worth everything to me. And
Hmm.
I think I'm on the side of it's worth everything where, I want to stay and I want to push for additional accountability. And, we started to see some of that accountability last fall when the Sally Yates report was released. And
What's the Sally Yates? Could you explain what just quickly what the
yeah,
Sally Yates
yeah.
report is?
So when the news hit in 2021, NWSL and US Soccer, the two governing bodies of women's soccer, they both started their own investigation. So US Soccer actually hired Sally Yates, the former Attorney General, to lead that investigation. And it came out and basically resulted in like executive leadership at Portland Timbers and Thorns getting fired. So I don't think anybody would have projected that Mike Golub and Gavin Wilkinson would have, lost their jobs because of a U.S. soccer report, but they
Yeah.
did, and that was part of the change.
Have you had any communication at all with Thorns management through all this since you're like, a major booster?
Yeah. So I'm actually the president of the 107 Independent Supporters Trust, which is our nonprofit that powers or supports the Timbers Army and the Rose City Riveters.
Mhm.
I've also been actively involved in the Rose City Riveters, which is the supporters group for the Portland Thorns for like 9 years. So in those roles, we have been in communication. We were having meetings with the front office. We were sitting there and trying to help push them to communicate more openly with the public, let people know, hey, what are you doing to address these concerns that employees brought to the table or players have brought to the table? How is the business changing?
Mhm.
So that we can have faith that like you're not just putting your head in the sand and hoping this will blow over. So, you are seeing better decision making happening, but trust takes time to rebuild.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a break here. When we come back, let's get into the upcoming season. So, new season getting underway in March. What's different for you and your friends?
So for my friends who follow the Thorns more than the Timbers, I think when Merritt Paulson announced that he was going to be selling the team in November, I think is when the announcement happened. It was just a breath of fresh air. Like, okay, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Hmm.
Granted, there were, road bumps along the way to the season starting and everything, but I do think that there's some optimism, but also some reservation because we don't know who's going to be the buyer. We don't
Yeah.
know if it's going to be another person like Merritt Paulson or is it going to be another person that's worse, right? There's
Hmm.
no way to know or forecast that. You just kind of have to hope that somebody with good intentions is going to step into that role.
Have you guys reached out to Natalie Portman and just asked if maybe she could buy your team too?
We do not have a direct line to Natalie
Okay.
Portman. I do know that folks have been shaking some trees to see if anybody was going to tumble out that could afford, 50 or $60 million
Okay.
to buy a team. Yeah, but not Natalie Portman.
Yeah, for those who are just like, why are they talking about Natalie Portman? She like founded the LA women's team, Angel City FC, which was, I didn't know she was such a big fan. Out of all the celebrities, I'm like, Natalie Portman, okay, let's go. Um,
Yeah.
but how are you feeling about the new CEO, Heather Davis? They kind of, this always happens, don't you think? Like there's a huge, like, men are misbehaving and they're like, here's a woman, stop yelling.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's what happened there. That's what happened with Karina LeBlanc. Like Karina LeBlanc was hired as the general manager for the Portland Thorns after they suspended Gavin Wilkinson when the original report came out in 2021. So there is a pattern here.
Hmm.
Okay, let's find, a qualified woman to step into this role and fix it, right? And so I do think, Heather Davis, I think she has an awesome credential, like an awesome resume. I just really worry about how much she's being influenced by Merritt Paulson and Peregrine Sports. Peregrine Sports is the owning entity of the Timbers and the Thorns. It's interesting that they would, promote Heather to this role after such a short amount of time with the club. And then, in her first, hi, Portland, this is who I am, she profusely thanked Merritt Paulson for giving her this opportunity. And it's just like, read the room.
Yeah.
Like, nobody here likes that guy.
Yeah. So this season, like we were talking about, do you think you're gonna get that old feeling of being a Thorns fan, or are you still kind of tiptoeing back in?
Yeah, I think it'll arrive at some point. It's interesting. I don't know if you or how many folks who listen were at the semifinal match that where we played San Diego,
Hmm.
and it was like 24,000 people in the stadium. It was almost sold out, and that match like lit a fire in me
Hmm.
for like this is what every game should feel like.
Yeah.
This is what, athletes deserve. Um, this is the way I would hope that we can show up for them. I get that it was a semifinal, it was a big game. There was a lot going on at the time. It was again right after the Yates report came out, so everybody was all in their fields and processing and trying to figure out can I even go inside the stadium? Like, is that even physically possible for me? But yeah, I think I'll get that hair standing up on my arm feeling again. I just think now I'm not so rose-colored glasses about it. I'm not so naive. It's like, all right, there's stuff happening. It's not perfect.
Yeah. One more thing. What's your favorite song? Like, like favorite chant.
Oh, my favorite chant. I'm a huge fan of we do this one. I think it's like a Pitbull song. And it's like bon 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 bon, sing wherever we go. Bon 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 bon, we are the real CEO. Bon 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 bon, the girls will never leave us. Bon 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 bon, fuck off, you cannot beat us. And then it's like a trumpet thing, solo thing comes in. It's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
boo, 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 doo, doo. Like it's so much fun. Like it
Sweet
gets me
trumpet
going.
solo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It gets me going. Sorry, I forgot the words. We're not in season right now. Like ask me in a month and I'll know it.
The Portland Thorns kick off their regular season on Sunday, March 26th, with a match against the Orlando Pride at Providence Park. You better grab those tickets quick. And now for your microdose of news. The snow might be melting, but hundreds of Portlanders are facing a hefty bill after last week's surprise snowstorm. PBOT estimates that 600 cars were abandoned in Multnomah County alone, and at least 350 of them ended up being towed to impound lots. The Transit Bureau says they're waiving abandoned vehicle fines, but drivers will still have to pay to get their cars back. And that could cost hundreds of dollars. If you need help getting your car back, we threw some links in our show notes of where to start. And a show at the Doug Fir Lounge is a rite of passage for many Portland music fans, but soon it will have a new home. This summer, the legendary venue will be moving from inside the Jupiter Hotel into the space formerly occupied by the restaurant Le Bistro Montage, which I miss daily. It was 24 hours. Your leftovers would be wrapped into like a crazy swan thing. I don't know. It was amazing. That location happens to be underneath the Hawthorne Bridge, by the way, so waiting in line for a show might get interesting. For even more local news and events, sign up for our daily newsletter, Hey Portland. We'll throw a link in the show notes. That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate it, leave us a review. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.